In this video, we're going to look at naming compounds. We're going to cover writing chemical formulae, then naming ionic compounds, and naming covalent compounds. So firstly, we've already looked at what a molecule is and the difference between atoms and molecules of a compound. So a compound is where we have more than one atom chemically bonded, and those atoms are of a different type. So we need to now know how to name these compounds. So the first thing we do is work out how to write the chemical formula. And it's pretty easy. We just go through a list. First the metal, then hydrogen, then the solid nonmetal, and then other nonmetals. So as long as you know a bit about the elements that are contained in the compound, you'll be fine. So for example, here we have sodium and chlorine. So we have sodium, the metal, it goes first. We don't have any hydrogen. We don't have any solid nonmetal. We have an other nonmetal, chlorine being a gas. So the chemical formula is just the symbols for sodium, then the symbol for chlorine. If there are more than one of a particular, or atoms of a particular element, we use a subscript, which means below the line, number, to show how many of those atoms there are. So here we have a carbon bonded with an oxygen. So firstly we name the metals. We don't have any metals. Then we look for hydrogen. We don't have any hydrogen. So we look for the solid nonmetal. Okay, we've got carbon here, which is a solid nonmetal, so it goes first. We then have the other nonmetals. And oxygen is a gaseous nonmetal, so it goes next. And you can see that there are 2 oxygen atoms in this compound, so therefore we put a subscript 2 next to the O to show that there is 1 carbon and 2 oxygens. So writing chemical formula, once you actually know what the elements within the compound are, is quite easy. Once we've written the chemical formula, we just need to name the compound. Now there are 2 different types of compounds which we are going to learn about. The first one is an ionic compound, and it occurs when a metal and a non-metal bond together. So a metal and a non-metal, an example that we had before was our sodium and our chlorine, sodium being a metal, chlorine being a non-metal. Now when we name this, we just name it in the same order that we write it down. So this is sodium chlorine. But what we need to do is change that chlorine to a chloride. So the end of the word becomes IDE. So we have sodium chloride. Now when we write this, the second word, the chloride, is always lowercase. So that is as easy as naming an ionic compound. Next we're going to look at covalent compounds. Now covalent compounds have 2 nonmetals bonded together. And we use the same rules. We start with each element in the same order. We change the last element to "ide", but in covalent compounds we need to also indicate the number of atoms. And we do this with prefixes. And the prefixes that we use is mono for 1, di for 2, tri for 3, and tetra for 4. So if we have a look at the molecule that we had before, which had carbon and 2 oxygens. We're going to firstly name the carbon. We're then going to name the oxygen. We're going to change the end to IDE. And to show that there are 2 oxygens, we're going to put a di at the front. So we have carbon dioxide. Again, naming covalent compounds. Same order, change the end to "ide" and put the prefixes to show how many atoms of each element there are. In this video, we've looked at writing chemical formulae, and we've looked at naming compounds based on that formulae for both ionic compounds and covalent compounds.